Hi everyone, hope all of you are doing fine. So today we're going to make the mini shoulder boneless pork roast. So stay tuned, watch and enjoy, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more lovely videos and recipes. Take care, bye. Alright everyone, so let's get cracking and crackle this pork. Look at this lovely baby. So this is 1 kilo of pork boneless mini shoulder roast. So it's looking nice, plump and juicy. The bottom meaty bit, you can leave it plain, or what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to marinate it in a lovely sauce. In order to make the lovely marinade sauce, I'm going to take a pan and I'm going to add in about half a cup of sesame oil, half a cup of light soy sauce, about 3 tablespoons of vinegar, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon chili paste, 2 tablespoons of garlic paste. Now this is optional, but I like to add in 1 teaspoon of meat tenderizer into this. And then I'm going to take an onion and put it off into my mini food processor. There we are, it's looking nice and lovely. And then I place the onion off into the pan with the marinade. Then we can turn on the heat and just combine it all together nicely. Just until the sugar dissolves nicely and everything is combined together. So we don't want to completely cook this marinade, just want everything to combine nicely together and just, warm it a little bit. And once the sugar is dissolved, what we can do is we can take it off the heat and cool it down to room temperature. So you can see it's a nice consistency now. Now because it's so lumpy, after putting it in the food processor, even the onions are still very lumpy. I'm actually, if you want a thick chunky consistency for the marinade, that's fine. But I want the marinade to be nice and creamy in consistency. So without lumps, I want it to be nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this off into a blender and then make it into a nice smooth paste. So there we are everyone. So once it's cooled down to room temperature, I've just placed off into a blender and I'm going to make it into a very nice smooth paste marinade. So let's blend this up. There we are everyone. So now we can see that our lovely nice smooth flavorsome marinade paste is ready. I'm going to pour it off into a container. And then we can take our pork roast and place it off into this. So we need to leave this layer as dry as possible, so make sure that does not touch the marinade, but we want the meat bit underneath. So we want this meaty bit to be nicely marinated in this marinade sauce. So there we are, have a look like this. See, just the meat portion is touching the marinade and the fatty portion is still left nice and dry. Now we can leave it for marinating for about 8 hours to overnight. So I'm going to keep this in the fridge, all ready to go into the fridge for marinating. So lovely. The process of heating that marinade sauce in the pan first and then cooling it down to room temperature is totally optional. You can keep the marinade raw if you want, but I just thought it will just bring out all those flavors and infuse nicely, and that way the meat gets a much better taste of the marinade, so it all comes together nicely. So that's the reason I did that, but that's totally optional. You can still use the marinade sauce raw. You don't need to heat it and just place the meat onto the sauce. So the next step, once the meat has been nicely marinated, is to preheat the baking oven to 240 to 250 degrees. And they say for 500 grams of meat, it takes about 1.5 hours to cook. So this is 1 kilo of meat, so it will need to stay in the oven for at least 3 hours, I think, for it to nicely cook. So I'm not going to just leave it in there, at 240 or 250 degrees for that long period, because there's a good chances that it could get burned. So what I'm planning on doing is for about 40 to 45 minutes, put it on the high heat of 250 degrees, let the fat crackle nicely, so until it nicely crackles. And once it crackles and it's nicely crispy and crackling, then I'll be bringing down the heat to 160 degrees and cooking it for another 1.5 hours or so until the meat is nicely cooked and tender. And then I'm going to cover it up with an aluminium foil and leave it for another 15 to 20 minutes So just let it sit. So that's the plan as of now, but we'll have to go along as we cook this and see how it turns out. So it's all you got to use up your common sense as well, because we plan certain things and the cooking time and how long it takes to cook and get tender, but it also depends on the meat. It has to be cooked and it has to come right, so we have to see as we go, isn't it? But this is the overall plan. So once the meat is nicely marinated, we are going to start roasting it up. So exciting. All right, everyone. So once it's been marinated, I'm going to place this off onto a cutting board and score the fatty bits. You've got to make deep incisions very close to until you get to the meat. And the closer you score it, or sear it, the more crispier and more crackling it will become. So there we everyone. So just place it onto the chopping board. Another thing you can do before putting the meat into the marinade to infuse the flavor nicely is you can take a fork and prick holes at the bottom over here, so that way the marinade will nicely enter the meat as well. But this would also be good enough. Marinated for long enough. So you can see here everyone, so as close to each other as possible, see, till the meat. So nice deep cuts. So just keep searing it nicely. And there we are everyone, so you can see it's nicely done. See? You can see that the marinade from the meat has oozed out. So I'm just going to turn it to the back side, and using the fork we can make deep holes in the meat. So nice deep holes with the fork. And I place this back into the marinade mixture. If you haven't already done so, preheat your baking oven to 250 degrees. So let it sit there while we are preparing the baking tray, and for about 15 minutes or so. Yeah, so here's the baking tray lined with aluminium foil. You can spray on some oil spray. So next, into a bowl we're going to take half of a lemon and squeeze the juice. Also add some olive oil into that. So this is to help remove the moisture from the pork fat. Just about 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Take the pork and place it onto the baking tray. Okay, everyone, so it's looking nice and lovely. And then using a clean paper towel, we can just pat dry it nicely. So just this top fatty section, got to make it nice and dry. And then we can brush on this oil and lemon juice mixture on top of it. So nicely in between the seared areas. Nicely put it in between there. There we are. Next you can take some salt or rock salt and put a layer on top of this fat. So that will draw out the moisture. You can see just putting salt on there. Once you added in 1 layer of salt, just take another clean paper towel and just press it down nicely onto it. So that will help remove some of the moisture as well, and also will help the salt to stick on the meat. I'm going to put another layer of salt on top. Got to form this sort of a thick crusty layer of salt. Make sure to put it in between the slits that we made, so that it will draw out all the moisture. Yes, I just pat it on there nicely. And once that's done, I'm just going to discard that aluminium foil because we don't want the excess salt that has dropped off. So I'm going to put a clean aluminium foil. I drizzled on some oil into that, and now we can place this meat onto that. Yes, so just pat it on there nicely, and then we can place it off into the baking oven that we have preheated at 250 degrees. See? It's gone in for about 40 to 45 minutes until it nicely crackles. So with this, we can actually cook this marinade sauce now. I don't like the idea of using the same marinade sauce. You can make a fresh batch of it, but I'm just going to cook this. Alright everyone, so after 45 minutes, here we have taken it out of the baking oven, and you can see this salt layer. When we remove this salt layer, underneath you can see this nice crackle. See the pork fat crackle? So we can remove this salt layer. So it will just come off easily. See, it's got to easily come off. See? Like that. Wow. So amazing. So once we've just taken off this lovely salt layer, look at this nice, lovely crackle. Okay, it's looking nice and lovely. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to put fresh aluminium foil and cook this at 150 degrees for another 1.5 hours until this meat is nicely cooked. Yes, it is lined another fresh aluminium foil with some oil. We're going to place this back into the baking oven. This time it's going in at 150 degrees for about 1.5 hours until this meat is cooked nicely. Another thing you can do is, actually I'm going to do that, just dip this into that marinade once more. The meat will be nicely flavored. So here's the marinade. There's a lovely crackle pork. So just put it into the marinade, the meat section, and place it off into the baking oven. Now this one we can put it into a pan and turn it in, like cook it up nicely and turn it into a nice sauce. This marinade just cooks up with the meat. One thing I'm finding is, everyone, if you leave it open, then it starts burning on the sides a bit, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with an aluminium foil and put it off into the baking oven at 150 degrees for that 1.5 hours. So it's best not to take off that salt coating too early, and wait for it to nicely cook and then take the salt coating out. But since I've taken the salt coating out and it's nicely crackled, now I'm just going to cover it with an aluminium foil on top, and then I'm going to put it in the oven for this 150 degrees just to get this meat nicely cooked and tender, and then this dish is ready. You can see with a fork I've just pierced few holes in there so that the moisture doesn't get trapped in it, you know, because I still want the crackling to be nice and lovely. Just everyone, so this is after 1.5 hours. Another half an hour and the meat should be nice and ready. So I'm going to cover it and place it back into the baking oven, and once it's ready we are going to plate it up. For the next half an hour I'm going to turn up the heat to 200 degrees so it will cook up faster, because it's covered with aluminium foil. It takes you know, a bit longer because the heat needs to penetrate. So if you want to slow cook it, yes, let it just be in the 150 degrees, but I want to speed up the process and I want it to be nicely cooked in the next half an hour. So in 200 degrees with this covered nicely, it should be good and it won't get burned. Alright everyone, so look at our lovely pork roast, nicely done, nice and ready. You can see the crackle is nice and crackly. Wow, nice and crispy. So let's cover it up and let it sit for 15 minutes. We have taken it off the heat and covered it up for 15 minutes to rest. After letting this lovely baby rest for 15 minutes, now we can cut it up and plate it up. Before we actually do that, I'm also going to put this marinade mixture into the pan and cook it up so we can drizzle it on top. So there it is everyone, it's nicely cooking away. That nice flavorsome smell of the onion, garlic, chili paste, soy sauce, sesame oil. It's wonderful. There we are. So once it's nicely cooked, the onion is nicely caramelized and turns into this nice brown color. We can add in half a cup of water into that. And then we can mix it around, and there we go. We got this nice, lovely gravy that, you know, once you get your desired consistency, let it thicken up a bit. And once you get your desired consistency, we can pour it over the pork. Okay, everyone, so I got it into this nice thick consistency, and now I'm going to take it off the heat so it's nice and lovely, sort of a gravy. Taste and flavor of this is so amazing. Look at it everyone, so much steamy. So it's nicely taken shape. See? Now we can get back to the pork and start cutting it up. So look at this everyone, it's so nice and lovely and cooked. So place it onto a cutting board. I'm going to cut it up and plate it up. So look at the crackle, so nice and crispy. See, so lovely it is. Alright, so we can cut it out. Look at it, everyone. Nicely cooked, moist and juicy. So look at this lovely meat, nice and juicy. We can take off the string. We don't need the string, so we're going to remove the string. See? Look at it, everyone. Nice and juicy. Nicely cooked inside. And the crackle. See? Nice and crackling. How awesome is that for a crackle? See? So lovely. And there it is, everyone, nicely plated up. There's our marinade sauce. There's our pork. Look at it. A close-up look. So nice and lovely. And let's have a look at the crackle. Look at that. So it's amazing. And a lovely flavorsome sauce. So what do you think of this, everyone? Nice and lovely, isn't it? Now another option that you can do, which I'm not going to show in this particular video, is if you want to turn it into that Asian style. You know, they have those sticky pork belly and things like that. What you can do is take the pan and put this marinade into the pan, and then place the pork slices into it as well, and combine it all together, you know, and let it fry a bit until the marinade you know, ends up infusing with the pork pieces. So that way you will get a totally different dish. But anyway, since I took the trouble of making it this much, what I'll do is I'll show you guys how to do that too. So just putting this in there. So it's a marinade. There we are. And then I went ahead and put the pork pieces on top of the marinade sauce. So this way you're not doing it separately. You know, you're just infusing it nicely onto the pork, and let it just cook properly. And how much it cooks depends on your personal preference, like how much you want the marinade to infuse onto the pork. So there we are. So this is another method that you can use, and then you can plate it up. There we are. So just turned on the heat and covered it with the lid. So you can see that there are different styles and ways you can turn a dish into. But for that lovely crackle, it's good to keep it nice and simple like this. Tucking away as I go along. So let's have a taste of this crackle. Look at the crackling crunch. There we are. So let's see how this is going. So just going to turn it around. The masala is nicely infused into the pork. Just turning the pieces around. Over there. So we don't want to fry it too much. Well, if you want to fry it, you can fry it. You know, you can see the fat starting to fry up. But I'm just going to take it off the heat once it's just infused with the masala. So there we are, everyone. So see, nicely the marinade has been infused. See, this one got a bit fried. But yeah, it's up to you how much you want to roast it. You can see different ways of doing it. So if you want a different marinade, you can even try that, you know, like the honey, soy and garlic. That's a good flavor combination in order to make a marinade sauce, and that will give this a nice sticky look, you know, when the marinade infuses with the meat. But look at this, everyone. So nice and lovely. And apart from that, here it is, everyone, our lovely salt crusted crispy marinated pork crackle is ready. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more lovely videos and recipes. Apart from that, take care, enjoy, bye. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more lovely videos and recipes. Take care, bye.